Welcome back, everyone. We have a packed schedule over the next few hours, a panel discussion and some fun desk Pilates. And just a reminder that there will be a series of workshops throughout the month, and further details will be coming up on your screens a little later. Also, now we have the mental health toolkit, which is accessible on the chat. It points to essential resources and practical help. So if there's anything that you think can be added to that, then please let us know. So in this session, we're going to be hearing from Ian Manboard from the Union Equity and John Crowley from the Headlines Network. First, we're going to welcome Ian, who will talk about the work that Equity has done to support their members' mental health. Like the NUJ, Equity has a large proportion of freelance members. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you very much, Raj, and good morning to everybody. It's really good to see you all. And a sincere thanks, particularly to Caroline Holmes, for extending an invitation to me to speak at today's conference. As we near the start of Mental Health Awareness Week, 9th to 16th of May, this is a great way to kick it off and to do so in solidarity with the sister union. So as Raj says, my name's Ian Manboard. I work at Equity. I've been there for 5 years now, and I'm the union's Equality and Diversity Officer. And I share responsibility for the focus on members' mental health and well-being, particularly as it relates to equality issues and with other colleagues around policy and industrial areas as well. And as Raj says, what I'd like to do is just take you through some of the work that we've been doing with an allied group of workers. I know our members are involved in slightly different work, but as Raj has said, they are principally, like NUJ members, self-employed workers, often working in isolation. And but I'm going to comment on a joint piece of work that we did with the NUJ that related to our members' well-being, and it's one of the reasons why. Another reason why I wanted to come today was just to extend our thanks as a trade union for that work. Raj, if I'm close to running over time, just intervene by all means, because it's one of these trade union issues that you could just speak about for a long time. One of the things I just wanted to do at the beginning was just in light of the title of this session, Together Stronger, and on behalf of Equity's General Secretary, Paul Fleming, extend a message of solidarity from the members of Equity and Equity staff to the members of the NUJ and members of the NUJ staff. We all know, and I think Michelle underlined this, the work of trade unions is overwhelming. And it's difficult sometimes just to stop and pause and pick up on those particular issues. But as Michelle said, mental health is a trade union issue. Anything that impairs our members' emotional, psychological, physical, and also financial well-being are trade union issues. And we know that the source of poor mental health isn't just a susceptibility to depression, anxiety, or some of the more severe mental health issues. It is the very nature of the economy that members work in, and that's made worse by working in a part of the economy that rests on exploitative behaviour. And so, as Natasha said in the kind of opening session, the duty of trade unions is to make mental health issues legitimate and to encourage our members to speak up. And I want to talk a little bit about that later on. But I think what I really wanted to underline from the very outset, and this I know reflects a feeling on the part of many NUJ members and definitely Equity members, is you're not supposed to complain when you're in work. You're just supposed to be grateful that you've had the opportunity for work. In the sectors where our respective members operate, work is precarious. It's not often only just low paid. It's often work you're expected to do for free. So you're not supposed to complain. You're just supposed to be grateful they've had that opportunity. And thus, it's not surprising that our members end up working in the assumption of a cultural norm that because I've got work, I should just do it and I should be happy and I should just work through that particular phase of work and not see any impairments on me as problematic in any way. And as a trade union with no lay representative structure, we don't have workplace reps because our members are often, even when they are in work, they're often in work for very short periods of time. It places a greater onus on us to focus on the resources and the guidance and the support for members as well. So that's really what the kind of issues I want to talk about. What have we as a trade union been doing to support our members. But just first of all, just a little bit, I'm sure you're aware of this anyway, but we're the trade union for performing arts workers. Our members are those people that you will see in film, TV and theatre, whether it's a West End show or something on a regional basis, a Disney production, an Apple Plus production, and a Netflix production as well. And often people make assumptions that our high profile members are the core of the union. And they are, and they're very welcome, of course. But a lot of our members are those also working in pubs and clubs. They're the tribute acts, they're the singers, they're the children's entertainers, they're the people that go into care homes. It's also a fascinating union to work for because our members work on cruise ships. Our members work in circus. As festivals are opening up this year, and I'm sure many of you go into festivals, our members are the singers and the cabaret acts. As you're walking down the street, our members are also street performers as well. So you will often see members of our union and not realise that they are members of the union. But we're quite fortunate. We have 47,000 members. That's a large proportion of the performing arts workforce in the UK are unionised, which is a great thing to be able to say. And we have 5,000 student members as well. So we're very much like NUJ members. These are principally self-employed workers working for what can be very short periods of time. If they're doing a voiceover for a commercial, it can be half a day, for example, but I'm sure that's very similar to the work that NUJ members are often contracted for. And if they're lucky, they might be on a soap, or they may be contracted to work for a film and be involved in a period of production for that film, for example, shooting on set that may last half a year, for example, or be on a long-running series. So, but generally, members are engaged for relatively short periods of time and spend lots of time also out of work, which is why one of the core services of the union that supports members is the tax and welfare service. But inherent within that, and again, very similar to NUJ members, is work that is sporadic, is precarious, and as I'm going to say later on, and this kind of reflects a point, Raj, that you were making before, because our members are in the public eye regularly, they are subject to abuse, online abuse. I think while social media has many benefits, I think the downside for members of the NUJ and Equity as well is the public assumption that our members are free game for anything that you want to say. And also on the equalities front, particularly so for our women members and for our Black members and for our members who are deaf and disabled as well. So the advice and guidance to our members generically is important, but particularly where they are exposed to particular abuse because someone doesn't like the fact that the woman, for example, is of a particular size and height and weight. So there are lots of parallels between the respective work that we do. And so I just want to move on and talk a little bit about my work and how mental health within Equity is kind of managed, is kind of focused on. As the union's equality officer and as a responsibility for advising on casework, managing casework, I often see mental health or stress-related illness arise as a result of discrimination in the workplace. And it worries me immensely that we are in a sector, again, I'm sure it's very similar for NUJ members, where employers, leaders and managers within organisations believe they can act with impunity in abusive behaviour, and abusive behaviour that's kind of regularised and normalised in terms of cultural practices. It's not surprising that this industry was the one that had significant exposure back in late 2017, early 2018, with the initial allegations against Harvey Weinstein. And I think one of the things that did for all workers, regardless of them being in the performing arts industry, is lifting the lid on what workers have to put up with on a day-to-day basis just to get work and to stay in work as well. And that trauma that our members experience, not dissimilar again to NUJ members, is that work that I see regularly. And it does worry me that our duty as a trade union is to press against the idea that that is normal. Very much as Natasha said before, it's not normal to be treated with disregard. It's not normal to be sexually harassed or racially abused. It is not. It's not that it's just not unlawful, it's not ethical, and it's certainly not within the standards that employers have to meet in terms of health, safety, and welfare legislation either. But it is a routine thing that I see regularly in terms of the discrimination cases that we experience. But I think also it's important to say that as a trade union, I'm sure very much like the NUJ, one of the things that we do in terms of, first of all, trying to protect our members from that abusive behaviour, from those poor practices that underline how they become susceptible to poor mental health, is through the maintenance of good health, safety and welfare practices through our collective agreements. We're very fortunate as a trade union in that our collective agreements across the industry are fairly extensive. So whether it's film, TV or theatre, generally when our members are in work, certainly those core parts of the industry, they're generally working under an equity agreement. And obviously that allows us to shape the collective terms around health, safety and welfare standards. And many workplaces can be good, but I think in truth, many of those workplaces, no matter that the members are working under a contract, does not mean that their managers understand their duties under that contract as well. So there's a constant role for us to encourage our members to speak up where they feel that somehow the contractual rights that should be afforded to them are somehow not being. But what I should underline as well is many of our members don't work under a collective agreement. And again, sure, like similar to the NUJ, those members working in pubs and clubs, for example, who are working in isolation and are working on their own, are routinely subject to abuse, for example. I think one of the things that you may have followed recently is the recent coverage of the experience of comedians, for example, who are coming back into operation following the long lockdown, and a weird kind of social phenomena of people forgetting how to behave when they're in public, of people forgetting how to behave when they're in that kind of social environment as well. So a massive spike in abuse on the part of our members. And I think it's important to underline, just because our members are burlesque artists, just because they are drag artists, just because they are comedians, it does not give people the right to abuse them. And there's something peculiar about work, again, like NUJ members, when you're in the public eye and the public believe that a result of that abusive behaviour is okay. It's not, as Michelle said. That's why this is a trade union issue. So for us, it's really important that we draw that line of what constitutes abusive behaviour, that we encourage our members to speak up about it, but we press those duties on pub and club owners, on theatre production companies, for example. And one of the things that we've done as a trade union, particularly for that group of members who are comedians, is rolled out a comedians charter. It's where we can very clearly articulate the health, safety and welfare duties on landlords, on the owners of pubs and clubs as well. Because I think there's often an assumption that just because I run a pub or a club and I contract you for work, I have no other duty on you. I think case law very clearly says, yes, you have. So it's about the trade union pushing back, legitimising our members' concerns and pushing back on those that have statutory duties. And one of the things that I should also mention that's quite unique to equity is that we have a dedicated health and welfare resource that we fund, along with a number of other organisations, including the Musicians Union, that's called the British Association for Performing Arts and Medicine. It's quite a unique service. It's a national network of healthcare practitioners, and they provide a full range of support to members, everything from occupational therapy, if you're a dancer and somehow you become physically impaired, if you work in an orchestra and your hearing's become impaired. But in terms of this particular discussion, if you've experienced some degree of trauma, for example, some kind of sexually abusive practice, then for us, it's a service that we can signpost our members to whilst we deal with the kind of legal issue or the workplace issue, and they can get expert help, counselling and therapy alongside anything that may be supplied by the NHS. But what it means is, as a trade union, We have a dedicated resource on hand for members. But, and there is a but here, what that's meant over time is that the trade union has largely individualized mental health issues. And again, going back to what Michelle said earlier on, we have to collectivize these issues. We have to be very clear with members that your experience is common to others, that your experience is not only unlawful, but it's inappropriate. So one of the things that Equity did at the beginning of the year is that our governing body, the council, asked that the union undertake something that's called a mental health commission, which is a piece of work where, in effect, we've taken a bit of a step back and we've asked ourselves, what fundamentally are the root and branch industrial issues that precipitate poor mental health? Of course, we've got some sense of those, particularly around precarious work, low pay, abusive behaviour. But what we've done is we've contracted a researcher to basically look at the existing research globally to help frame a set of, in effect, industrial priorities. And on Thursday next week, one of the things that we're going to be doing, not dissimilar from today's excellent event, is releasing that research, but launching a mental health charter for performing arts workers. In effect, a framework of demands on the industry that are going to be allied to our collective bargaining aims. So one of the biggest collective bargaining aims, of course, for workers generally, and certainly self-employed workers, is around pay. We want our members to understand that we understand their experience of abusive practices, of low pay, of precarious work, and that we take it seriously. So the Mental Health Charter sets out our priorities, but what members will also understand is that where their work is governed by collective agreements, that we're taking those demands directly to the employer, and that we will be creating some very clear links between low and poor pay and their mental health, because we want employers to understand this is not just an economic issue, that poor pay, low pay, no pay has deeper, wider psychological and emotional impacts on workers' well-being. So the framing of those priorities rests on this research, and the research has been very good for us because it kind of unpicked, although it's kind of an experience that we understand, it's identified and clarified the issues around a culture of unstable work, antisocial working hours, time away from home if members are touring globally across Europe, for example, and the financial fears of managing work. And I'm sure it's very much like NUJ members and having to manage a portfolio of work as well, and what that impact does over time. And I think what's been particularly important for us is the way that the research has kind of shone a particular spotlight on the group of workers that we represent, and illustrated, for example, that the research clearly identifies how depression, for example, can be twice as likely in performers than it can be across the general population. And when I say that, I don't mean at all to exceptionalize Equity's members. It is just essentially to say that they face very similar issues to NUJ members of the Musicians Union, for example, and the Writers Guild. There's a greater degree of exposure to mental health when your working life is much, much more precarious. But we've needed that research to really underline where our priorities should be. So they will be rolled out on Thursday. And the other thing that we're going to do on Thursday is we are also going to release a new toolkit for branches. And we've reviewed the resources available to members also. So on the industrial front, a real sharpening of our priorities and demands on the industry in terms of supporting members, ensuring that guidance is available on the website, and really placing our branches in, I think, a stronger position to encourage our members to take their health, safety and welfare much more seriously. Going back to what I said earlier on, I think it's incumbent upon us to push back against the cultural norm that being harmed to get work is unacceptable. Putting up with harm when you're in work is unacceptable. That's the pressure on us as trade union staff to make that clearly stated, to legitimise members understanding that when they feel that health is being impaired just by getting work or keeping work, that it's absolutely right to come to the union. I think the other thing I just wanted to mention is that is a thanks to the NUJ. I've noticed that Mark Fisher from the Edinburgh Freelance branch is here. Particular thanks to Mark and also Mike Jemison from the Ethics Council, because last year one of the issues that we sought to address was the racist abuse that members face sometimes from theatre critics. And although we wanted to push back against that racism, in essence, people being unhappy with the appearance of black and brown skinned people in certain roles on theatre or film or TV, and saying actually they have no role to play here, that should be a white person. I'm just generalising really. I'm feeling quite comfortable saying that, and we needed to identify a way to respond in a positive, constructive way, because there were issues here about the mental health harm that does to an individual, psychologically, to say that you have no role here. And Mark and other colleagues, members of the NUJ, were particularly helpful in framing our guidance to theatre critics, and Mike Jemison was particularly helpful in identifying how positive and constructive that feedback can be for critics as well. So a really good relationship between Equity and the NUJ, pushing back on a particular form of harm that our members face. And then one thing I just wanted to kind of say that's also been important for us is just supporting allied work. Earlier on this year, Help Musicians, which is the Musicians Benevolent Charity, rolled out a new helpline for members to report harassment and abuse. We know that harassment and abuse can precipitate mental health, so we advised on good practice in reporting those instances from a legal perspective. And earlier on in the year, the Film and TV charity rolled out a phenomenal new resource for the film and TV production industry on managing good mental health. I'm sure it's similar in the media industry as well, but there's an inbuilt assumption that everything has to be done quickly. And I'm sure there are reasons for deadlines, but often people's well-being is kind of like a collateral damage in an assumption that everything needs to be done quickly. And one of the things that this suite of resources is doing is just asking yourself, even if there is something intrinsic to the nature of your work that means that things have to be done in a particular way, give due regard to the way that you manage individuals' health, safety and welfare. And we really welcome the chance to kind of support that. The last thing I wanted to say, Raj, am I all right for time? I'm not running over. I'm going to be fairly quick.
That's fine. Another minute.
Oh, lovely. All right, I'll be really quick. The last thing I wanted to say then, this is excellent timing then, is what does Stronger Together mean from a trade union perspective in supporting good mental health on the part of self-employed workers? And it's largely what I've said already. It is helping members understand what we mean by stress. It's helping members understand what we mean by mental health. It's enabling them to understand that when they're in work, these things that are happening to you are not normal. These things that are happening to you are poor. It's legitimising the capacity of members to understand harmful impacts, legitimising their right to raise those with the trade union. And it means those trade unions taking those issues seriously, providing the dedicated resources like the toolkit Asha referred to before, but as being ready to push back against those issues as well. And it kind of, I suppose the last thing I wanted to say is that for us, and I'm sure for the NUJ, it's about giving our members hope. That's what today's about, giving our members hope that we understand the issues that affect them. And lastly, particularly in the context of the way in which the cost of living crisis, for example, is exacerbating poor mental health, we are mobilising our members for the 18th of June TUC demo on the cost of living crisis. We're bringing our members together. We want to give them hope. We want to inspire them, both to push back against what the government's doing to them, but also as part of the fabric of raising the profile of our industrial demands. So that's us. a lot of work going on, but really good to kind of share that with NUJ members today as part of your conference. Thanks, Raj, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the day.
Thank you, Ian. Some great reflections there, really interesting information that you put across there. Now I'm going to go on to John Crowley, who's going to talk about the work of the Headlines Network and what they've learned from working with journalists on mental health. Welcome, John.
Hello, I hope you can hear me all. So first of all, thanks to Ian there, and thanks to Nicola Talbot and Natasha Hurst who've invited me to speak. But first of all, as I'm saying, I'm going to start with apology. It's Saturday morning, the sun is out for some of you, and I'm giving you a PowerPoint presentation, not quite perhaps what you've been expecting, but it will be about 10 minutes or so. And if I go over that, Ian can get a crooked hook and kind of pull me off. But anyway, without further ado, let me try and explain what Headlines Network is about. I'm one half of it. My name is John Crowley. I'm a journalist of 25 years standing, and I work with my colleague and partner, Hannah Storm. Hannah is working in Canada at the moment and is sorry that she can't be here. I'm also, I should say, I'm very much a proud NUJ member, so it's a great privilege to be speaking to you all today. I also wear another hat as a co-founder of the Society of Freelance Journalists. We're a Slack group, and it's just great to hear people not forgetting about freelancers. Many of you have said this already, we are subject to low, slow, and no pay, and that's what we're all kind of fighting against. Myself and Hannah, we've both got a personal and a professional interest in this subject. Hannah has spoken and written expansively about the own PTSD she has had. I've suffered from burnout, and in a way, that's why we decided to formalize what Headlines Network is about. Hannah and I would pop up on lots of different panels, many like this, speaking about mental health and resolving, we've got to do something about this, and we never did. So last year, in the second lockdown, we started putting together a workshop program for journalists to talk just around the subject of mental health. And those workshops ran in November and December. We spoke to 4 cohorts. It was new entrants, new managers, people working in mid-career jobs, and newsroom leaders. And we did 4 sessions with them. And their feedback from those sessions, which was extremely profound, extremely informative, has informed a series of resources that we published last month. So as I said, Headlines is a network for those who care about supporting mental health in the newsroom. And I guess why we're speaking here today is that journalists are currently faced, if you like, with a perfect storm. As the speakers at the beginning of this workshop said, we're kind of faced with a series of challenges that COVID has brought into sharp focus. For many of you here, you may think, well, we should have been speaking about this before, and I would completely agree. Some of these issues have been raised, they're not exhaustive, but the current situations that journalists are affected by include financial pressures, as well as job insecurity, a rise in attacks on journalists, both online and offline, and particularly attacks on women journalists, increased workload and reduced resources, the pressure to upskill in terms of technology, the pressure to cover relentless breaking news, the pressure to remain connected, the fresh challenge of remote working, whether that's working in distributed settings or hybrid settings, the pressure of covering really emotionally charged and draining stories, highlighting issues around racial and social inequity, and not least suffering discrimination in the workplace. And then there's the added stresses of kind of reporting on our own communities during a global health crisis. So the issue that we contend is that the support structures currently in our industry are either patchy, invisible, or non-existent. Natasha and I were at a workshop a few weeks ago where a academic from the Netherlands kind of posited that, you know, journalists are in a sense don't have bodies. We don't have bodies because we are taught not to kind of be the story. And there's that kind of cynicism when we talk about our own mental health. We've all had that when we had conversations with people where there's that eye roll, where you said, what you're talking about mental health, you're making it about you. And I think there's, charitably speaking, a real blind spot when it comes to raising issues about mental health in the newsroom, in communities, or as freelancers. There's a taboo around the subject. And it's almost seen by some people, putting your hand up and saying that you're struggling is tantamount to saying that you're not a good journalist, that you can't handle the pressure, which is wrong. Of course it is. So, you know, a bit like, why are we talking about this now? I'll say this, go into more detail in a second, is like all freelance journalists who do a good pitch, you need a good news hook. And the news hook has been the pandemic, because it's allowed us time to reflect, a lot of time to reflect on what we're doing as an industry, but also to think about how we can rebuild it anew and hit the reset button. So how can we kind of make journalists and allow them to be happier, which is not too much to ask, I would contend, and do good work? Well, first of all, we've spoken about it being the right thing to do. That isn't always enough for newsroom leaders to move. We ask our bosses, if you like, we need to, you know, hold ourselves to a higher standard, because we're preaching to people either through broadcast or either through our news pages around mental health. That isn't always enough either. As these resources that have been published today by the NUJ show, though, it's now a kind of a legal requirement now for newsrooms to do this. We've got the 2010 Equalities Act, we've got rights around workplace assessments and access to work. And this is why newsroom leaders really need to listen to this now, because it's part of our rights just to have this, to be able to go to work and expect these few things. The other slightly icky thing that we say to news leaders as well, which I'm afraid gets their notice, is that this is a bottom line issue. So you're creating these kind of bright, shiny workplaces for new, diverse talent, putting a load of money and resources into it. And people are walking into these toxic environments and turning around and going. And what I would say is, as someone who's slightly longer in tooth, I have put up with so much more in my working career than younger people are prepared to put up with now, which is a great thing. They are much more adept and articulate at speaking about their mental health and also seeking resource for this. A lot of people are leaving universities where they do receive this support. Whether that's good or not is a subject for another conversation, but they do receive that support, and they come into their workplaces and then it's not there. We had one person on our workshop, a young lady who said to her team leader, "You're going to have a mental health checkup with me every fortnight. Every fortnight. That's how it's going to work." And okay, all right, let's do this. That is the kind of conversations that we need to be having. So as said, why do we need to have this conversation now? This has been said before right at the top. We are exhausted by the events of the last 2 years. News events, of course, and we all know them, have exacerbated our stress, Again, this has been referred to earlier. There's been a blurring of our professional and our personal work lives. Our working environments have changed, whether that's through remote or hybrid working. And then the question we ask is, how and why should we respond positively to this? And I would say mental health, or open conversations around mental health, are happening across our society now. And we should be doing it in our newsrooms, in our communities, groups of freelancers, networks where journalists gather. Let's face it, news organizations haven't always been that innovative at adapting to change, not least digital transformation, pay models and the like. And what I would contend is that we risk being left behind by culturally when it comes to mental health. We are not moving quick enough to reflect society. And what happens when you get a healthier and happier workforce? You produce better work. I don't think journalists mind being asked to work in fast-paced, dynamic environments. You know, a lot of us are attracted to that. We're not complaining about that. What we're saying is that we don't want to get it to a level where those environments are toxic when we spend a third of our day there. It's not right. It's wrong. We all know that here. So what have we done? So as I said, Hannah and myself have produced a series of guidelines for journalists around, first of all, managing our mental health and supporting our colleagues. And this is being produced working alongside Mind, the mental health charity. Ian was talking about the work that has been, the resources that have been produced in his profession, and Mind actually worked on that too. So they're a suite of kind of written illustrative guides, which I've shared at today at headlines.net, which is our handle. We've also produced some accompanying video animation material, of which I will be showing one in a second. You can access our resources at headlines-network.com. So let's talk about the first one around managing our mental health. This is done through the prism of journalism, I should say, as well. Hannah and I are working journalists, so we're not trying to kind of teach people how to kind of suck eggs or preach down to them. It's just basic psychological self-care. It's how to relax, reduce stress, how to focus on breathing. I'll talk about boundaries in a second, the benefits of connecting with others like we're doing today, and how to look after your physical health. In terms of focusing on boundaries, that's, you know, distinguishing between your work and personal life. Again, this was said before, that we manage to be hyper connected and disconnected at the same time. And, you know, I'm holding up the device there. This is to kind of blame for it in many ways. You know, you might get a message from a parent, a sibling, a child one second, and then you get a message from a demanding news editor asking why you haven't filed any copy or asking you to work late. What I've done personally myself, so I work from home. As said, I'm freelancer. I have clear signals to start and end my working day. So I go on a commute, and that commute is circuitous, but it's a bookend. So at least it means that my day just does not kind of slide through as one. I've taken steps to protect my own personal time. There's always that inclination just to see if someone has responded to an email. You're worrying if your boss is going to message you. We get that conversations about that are hard, but we've got recommendations. We're doing newsroom training for managers, but people have all experienced around how to start conversations around communication with line managers or colleagues about how they should respect your time. The other resource that we've done is around supporting colleagues. And I should say this is peer-to-peer rather than kind of line manager or full manager. We're going to be doing more of that later this year. And that's around how to spot the telltale signs that perhaps a colleague might be struggling, how to start a conversation, to remember that we're not clinicians, that we're not therapists. So just knowing how to signpost to professional support. And there's also tips from them as well. And we're going to show some of them in one of the videos. I'm going to show one of the videos now, and hopefully this will work for you all.
I'd say the main thing that worked in terms of support from my colleagues was having time. I wasn't pressured to feel better or ready to work when I have been in a difficult place. Working through that can be a particularly difficult period. You know, it can be a long process. It's not something that you can rush and never should be rushed.
I think sometimes it helps to start a conversation about mental health if you talk about your own mental health first. Talking about your own mental health demonstrates to other people that it's safe, it's okay for them to talk about theirs, and that you're somebody who will have empathy, you will listen.
Just telling people all the time how important it is to speak up, either to open up about their own issues and find someone to talk to, or tell someone about someone else they're worried about.
Empathy, and then trying to be that listening ear, properly constructively listening, not rushing to solutions, maybe explaining things that have helped you cope, and then enabling that person to process that in their own time.
Thing that really kind of is helpful when supporting colleagues is to recognize when that colleague is behaving in a way that's different from what might be their normal.
You can never make presumptions when it comes to mental health. Everybody's different and everybody's individual and unique in the way that they deal with their own mental health. But what you can do, and what I've been trying to do, is just engage in conversation. And those very simple words, that's a very simple phrase, "Are you okay?" I think makes such a huge difference. And cake has often been a big support to me in mental health times, if I'm perfectly frank with you. Having tea and cake makes a huge difference. And having someone to have tea and cake with makes an even bigger difference.
I have this standing arrangement that I open up a hangout at 12 o'clock every day, and anyone who wants to come and talk to me about anything, maybe 2 or 3 will turn up. Knowing that there's something that they may want to share, I'll ask a question that would allow them, that draw out that information if they want to share it.
I think they can largely be distilled into, say, 3 key things. Listening is the first and foremost one, being there as an open ear, supporting them in any way that you possibly can do in a practical sense, and then signposting. I think really trying to understand what a person's going through, let them lead the conversation, do any of the immediate things that they may need to get support. But then again, it's then signposting them to the relevant professional support or appropriate support.
People, peers they could talk to, actually their own colleagues, some of whom were trained as mental health advisors or peer-to-peer supporters, to colleagues they could go to talk to.
There might even be like a mental health champion scheme in the workplace. There might be regular well-being sessions. For me, the ones that really work might be the places that have those, but also the culture is centered around people, or you just get the sense that decisions are made with people's well-being in mind. Headlines network exists to create.
Let's stop that there because I realise we're short on time. You'll see some familiar faces who appeared in that. Thank you, Natasha. This is an example of some of the recommendations, tips, insights that we provide on our resources, and these are actually my guidelines about if you are going to have conversations with people, choose an appropriate place. I've been in situations where I've had managers kind of walking up to people in the right bang in the middle of newsrooms and kicking off, saying, let's talk. Obviously, that's not the right thing to do. There's lots of tips around, as I said, how to encourage people to seek advice, but also another really important thing, remember to seek advice and support for yourself. As my colleague Hannah Storm says, the first 2 letters in mental health is me. I think I'll stop it there because we're coming right to an end. So thanks very much for the opportunity to speak to you, and happy to take any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thanks, John. That was really important, very Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you for that, John. Very important issues highlighted there. I just want to go to the chat because there's a few things on there that I think are quite significant. Alan Taylor Shearer is saying, I've heard pull yourself together and man up so many times. And, you know, I have to agree with that. There was a few phrases that I heard in the newsroom recently. Put your big girl pants on was one of them, which I thought was fairly disgusting. So I'm you know, very interested to hear some of the personal things that people are saying about this. You know, the stereotype of the Teflon journalist, Tony has said in the chat, that we're supposed to be hard as nails observers of fact and reality and to let nothing touch us. I think that's an important point for both actually journalists and equity members as well, Ian. I'd just invite you both to, I know we're running over, but I'd invite you both to comment on some of the things that are being said here.
One of the things I want to just jump in. First of all, apologise if I ran over and into John's time. I didn't mean to do that, John. But I just wanted to underline, this is the first time that through this project, John, become familiar with Headlines and the work that you were doing. I think it's a fantastic resource from a number of fronts, but I think one of the things that struck me during your presentation was that where the resources have the greatest strength is where they speak to either occupational or professional identity. People need to feel connected to what the resource is about. And Raji was saying, using examples that people are really familiar with. Ones where, like the Teflon journalist comment that Tony just made, things that are common. Right, as you were just saying, the things that you're hearing in the newsroom, we have to be using that language so people go, oh, right, okay, I hear that regularly. I hadn't realised that that's wrong, that that's problematic. We have to break down this experience, John, in the way that your resources do, to unhinge the idea that this is normal and acceptable just because you want a job. Your professionalism, your ability to do the job is sufficient. Harming you on a short, mid-term, long-term basis is simply unacceptable. So the first thing, Raj, I just wanted to jump in and just say really quickly, John, I think the work that you've done on behalf of NUJ members is fantastic. And I've robbed a couple of ideas, if you don't mind, for some work that we might do with equity members. Raj, I just wanted to jump in and say that.
Yeah, John, can I invite you to comment?
Yeah, no, that's okay. We're here to share, and I think what journalists are perhaps the industry is sometimes guilty of is navel gazing and not learning from other industries. So it's I've nicked a few ideas back, if you don't mind me saying, Ian, from what you said too. Yes, what you're saying, Raj. Unfortunately, those terms that you still hear in the newsroom are still ever prevalent, and as I said earlier on, there's complicated reasons for that, and particular reasons within journalism for that around, as I said, not being the story and not feeling that you can put your hand up. And yeah, what Ian said, that our USP, what we say when we speak to journalists, is that we're working journalists. We get it. We know what you're going through. We know those experiences. And I think, you know, being able to empathize and offer solutions for that is absolutely crucial. In the same way, when you'd be speaking to your members, Ian, or with your resources, you provide kind of context or scenarios or situations that people will say, yes, I've been in that situation before. I should also say that I put it in the chat. We will be running a workshop with the NUJ through Natasha. I think it's Tuesday, May the 24th, and we are looking tentatively at 7:30 p.m. So I think there'll be more communications on that too.
Thank you. That's really helpful, John. And I just wanted to add a little bit of what Caroline Holmes has said in the chat as well, that we need to challenge this term resilience as the individual, as this individualizes work-related stress, and start talking about environmental resilience. And this reminds the employer of their duty of care towards us as workers. So a very important point to make there, I think. I really thank you both, John and Ian, for your comments and, you know, very useful resources, and appreciate it. I'm sorry I'm going to have to bring it to a close. It's an important discussion.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Thank you both.
Thank you, and thank you, Raj.
And just I'd like to just mention as well that if you're going through anything right now that you need help with, then please, you can message Ray Howells. Rachel Howells or Zena on the chat, and they can direct you to a immediate resource. So please do that if there's anything that you're going through right now that you need help with. Hi everyone, we're back now, and I just want to say apologies for not signposting earlier that we would be back with Emma from Practical Pilates. Complaints in the chat, but here is Emma, and we're looking forward to this session. So take it away, Emma. Thank you.
Hi everybody, can you hear me okay? I think you can. Yeah, great. Well, a big thank you to Rachel for inviting myself here today. I'm quite excited to share a little Pilates with you. So firstly, I thought I would assume that a lot of you don't know what Pilates is about, or in fact, perhaps think that it's much like yoga. And whilst there are similarities between yoga and Pilates, they are both very, very different. So years ago, I'm the sort of person that actually was drawn more to yoga because my background is in health and well-being. And so, you know, modern living, we need mindfulness and meditation. And that's yoga predominantly prepares your body to be able to sit correctly in order for the meditation process. But there's been a great catapult with yoga, and I feel like it's losing a little something. It's a fabulous exercise, great for flexibility, but you can go off now and do a month in Bali and come back as a yoga teacher, which is great if you're young and you've got a supple body. But if you're heading for 60 like me, whilst I'm still pretty good at yoga, it's only because I've done 20 years of Pilates. So I would say for your mental health and for mindfulness and meditation, yoga is what you need. If you want a good, strong, flexible body, it's Pilates is what you need. That's about as much as I'll say on that. So why Pilates for you guys? I think Rachel's a big advocate of Pilates herself, and I think she realized that working at a desk or behind screens, because maybe some of you journalists are on the run on a train, but nevertheless you'll be in front of a screen. And the modern day Pilates, modern day lifestyle, because we're in front of a screen or a car or a phone, I'm going to demonstrate. We start to get hunched over, and then the shoulders come in. The pecs here get very, very tight as we're texting or driving or in front of our screen. So the pecs get tight and the trapezius muscle at the back gets overstretched. And over time we get like this, and then we can't see the screen, so we look up like this. And if I turn to the side, give yourselves 30 years and you're going to be walking around like this rather than like this. It doesn't happen overnight. Many of you that have been working behind your desks for a long time probably already do suffer with a bit of neck strain, shoulder strain. And you will become hunched over time. We all are anyway, whether we're sat behind screens all day, just because we're just not like we live like we used to. So Pilates, yes. If it's once a week you could go to a class, that would be awesome to strengthen your core and give you a good overall posture. But what would really complement that is if you could add 5 minutes into your routine. You know, when you're writing or you've got writer's block or you're drifting off into space, you know, you probably do get up and walk around. But if you could, that's the time when you add this little routine in, you'll slow down this aging process of us all moving forward. So, and you can stop it or slow it down and even correct it if you're already heading that way. So the target areas today are going to be the head, the neck and the shoulders, but I will briefly mention what we call in Pilates the 3 anchors, because they're so fundamental to a good Pilates class, and that's the rib cage, the belly and the buttocks. I think I mentioned in my bio about, but you might not have seen that yet because it's for our little taster session next week, about I liken it to a grand design house, you know, these modern builds that are huge and beautiful and fanciful, but they're on really solid foundations, or at least they should be. You wouldn't be buying a house on weak foundations, a little earthquake or a little mini wobble and the thing will fall down. Well, it's much the same with our outer unit. Lots of us go to the gym and work out and, you know, perfect these bodies, and that's not a bad thing, but unless the core is really strong, like good scaffolding inside, you know, I've taught many bodybuilders over the years, and we've really broken things down. They're busy doing 100 press-ups, working on the outer unit, but they're often, you know, they go to see the chiropractor once a month because the core isn't strong enough to support that big body. So I will talk about those three things. So where will we sit? Let's start, everybody, but I can't see you all, so I can only see myself. But I'm going to presume that you can see. We're going to start sitting. So I'd like you to just move your chair away from your desk a little. I don't know whether anybody's talked to you about, I mean, since the pandemic, lots of us are working from home, and I'm guessing we're all sitting, a lot of us are sitting on bad chairs. But if you are somebody that works at home a lot, you might have already invested. But it is really important to sit in a hardback chair, properly upright. So push it out a little. And I do believe I asked you all to bring a tea towel. So have the tea towel to hand. And if you haven't, now's your chance to run to the kitchen and grab one. So let's talk about sitting first. I want you to sit a little forward. It's important that your feet, the soles of your feet, are flat on the floor. So if you've got heels on, chuck them off and put the soles of your feet flat on the floor. They need to be roughly hip width apart, but that's not so important when we're sitting. And just get into the habit of lifting the arches ever so slightly so that you press on the outsides of the feet and try and keep the toes soft. That helps when you stand, but for now, if you can, don't focus too much on it, but that would be good if you could. I want you to sit forward slightly so that you're not sitting back in the chair all relaxed, but sit upright on your haunches. And we're going to first of all talk about the alignment of your head, neck and shoulders before we add the tea towels. You can rest that in front of you for a moment. If you all put your fingers in your ears, and I'm going to turn to the side just for you to be able to see, but if you just put your fingers at the tops of your ears, I believe it's called the pinner, and you want to sit up as straight as you can. And if I asked for a chin tuck, just have a look at me first on the screen. You can see my fingers are in the tops of my ears. If some people will do a chin tuck like this, I've left my fingers completely still. I've tucked my chin down and look, I've lost where my ears are. So if I start again, I've lengthened my crown. I think that, you know, just line yourselves up as best you can that you think is good and straight. And then that was what I just demonstrated was bad. Now I want you to imagine you've got a high ponytail like me. And when you tuck your chin, rather than think about dumping your chin on your chest or tucking it in, think more, visualize in your mind of the ponytail, your imaginary ponytail, lengthening up towards the ceiling. And then your chin tucks in and your fingers are still in your ears. Let's do that one more time. Let's do it badly first. So give me the chin dump rather than the chin tuck. Leave your fingers where they are, and that comes forward. And over time, with you working on tablets and phone, this is what you're going to be like permanently. Now bring it back up, and instead think about tucking the chin, lengthening the imaginary ponytail up to the ceiling. So you have got a gentle chin tuck, but your ears should still be in line with your shoulders. So that's what we're looking for. So when you turn and look over one shoulder, so you can leave your hands down. Hopefully you've understood the concept of your ears being in line with your shoulders and not coming forward. And then we'll just warm up the shoulder joint. So keeping that gentle chin tuck, imagining this ponytail reaching up to the ceiling. I want you to glide your shoulder blades up towards your ears, bad posture. And now slowly glide them down your back. Take your mind to your shoulder blades. And again, lift them up, shrugging up into a bad posture. This time, as you slide your shoulder blades down your back, think of lengthening that imaginary ponytail up towards the ceiling. And again, one more. Make sure you're sitting forward in your chair, feet flat on the floor. Slide the shoulder blades down your back as you lengthen the crown and grow taller. So you lengthen through the spine and you will actually grow a millimeter by the time you're finished. Let's have one more. Shoulder blades shrugged up towards the ears and then glide them down your back as you grow taller through the crown and lengthen up towards the ceiling. Good. Okay. Sitting back a little bit in your chair so that you don't bang into your desk. We want to take your tea towel. I want you to still sit upright. Your feet still need to be flat on the floor. Arms out in front, a little wider than your shoulders. Now I want you to gently pull outwards as you glide your shoulder blades down your back. Keep your arms straight. See, my elbows aren't bent, they're straight. As you pull outwards, I want you to feel the muscle group underneath your armpits. Ladies, where your bra strap is, just here. I want you to feel that fire up. They're your lats and your serratus muscle. So as you pull out, feel and anchor the shoulders down your back. You want to feel that muscle. You want to build that strength in that muscle. As I said before, the pecs here get tight. The trapezius muscle at the back gets overstretched in time when we're hunched over. So we're trying to work this muscle to make it stronger again. And we're going to stretch this muscle in a minute. So for a moment, let's just work on the trapezius muscle at the back. We're going to work it. It's a bit like an elastic band that's lost its elasticity. In real life, an elastic band will break once it gets to there, but your trapezius muscle, we're going to build that strength back up. So come down a little bit, so down to your lap, keeping the collarbones wide, lengthen up through the crown. You're going to breathe in as you're pulling outwards and raise the band, just to shoulder level. As you breathe out, keep pulling the band outwards and bring it down as you grow tall through the crown again. Breathe in as you come up with the band, the whole time you're pulling outwards. Breathe out as you come down with the band, but grow taller through the crown. One more for me. Breathe in as you come up. Breathe out as you come down and lengthen through the crown so you're growing taller. Okay, hold it, just leave the band on your lap for a minute. We'll come back to it. I want to talk about 360 breathing. These are these three little anchors I wanted to talk to you about, and then we build it in so that when we do a proper Pilates class, we talk about, it's all about the core and the connections in order to strengthen those core. The three connections are your rib cage, your belly, your core muscles, the transversus abdominis, and your glutes. Now, often if you go for any osteopathy work or physio work, 9 times out of 10, most people, we've got weak glutes. The more of us that are sitting down long term, our glutes are weak. It's your buttocks, your glutes. And with weak glutes, it'll throw everything else out. I don't know why, I was thinking about you guys, and I was thinking that maybe I imagined you sitting in coffee shops and people watching whilst you were writing whatever you were writing. And I think it'd be good for you to watch people. When you're people watching, look at the way different people walk. And you'll see some people in a hurry and that with weak glutes will push their bodies forward. So they'll lean forward as they walk. Then you've got your people who are hunched over and looking up here. And these just generally look miserable like this, usually older. You know, it's very common when you're older, but it's more and more the younger generation. And some of it is, I think, it looks like it's a lack of confidence. And I think there is pain going on, and that's why there's a grumpy face that goes with it. Whereas upright and when you have got a positive stride and when your posture is good, you look confident, you feel confident. And I just think that naturally puts a smile on your face. But okay, so I want to talk about this 360 breathing. If you can you can just, I can see my fingers at the bottom of the screen if I tilt it a little bit more. I want you to put your fingers just underneath your chest so that your middle fingers are touching. Glide your shoulder blades down your back, keep your collarbone wide here. When you breathe in wide and full, think of your rib cage, which house your lungs, growing out to the side. So watch my fingertips as I take a big, wide, deep breath in. You see my fingertips have parted, and as you breathe out, the ribs close down and the fingertips meet again. Now, if you are somebody that goes to yoga, you may struggle with this because you'll have been learning how to belly breathe, which is a good reason behind all of that, but it doesn't help your belly. You get a Buddha belly, whereas Pilates will tuck you in and make you look like you've got a flatter belly even when you haven't. But for this exercise, if you can learn how to breathe into the rib cage, that would be good. It's called 360 breathing because when you breathe in, it's all around the lungs and the back. Just imagine it all inside that rib cage. Give yourselves a couple more times practicing breathing in. The rib cage opens, the lungs capacity grows and it comes out. And as you breathe out, the ribs close down. And that's what you want to focus on, is when you're breathing out, the ribs close down, and focus on the last 2 ribs at the bottom. Imagine them going down towards your hips. Have a go again, breathing in. As you breathe out, close the ribs down, the fingertips meet, and then just at the end of that exhalation, finish the ribs, close them down that little bit tighter towards your belly. Okay, leaving that aside, because there's a lot to think about. It sounds very easy. If you look through the window of a Pilates class, it looks like they're not doing much at all, but it's all internal and you have to think about it. Now I want you're sitting upright, your feet are flat on the floor. If you look at if I leave my head still and the board behind me, focus on something behind me. When I pinch and perch my bottom, that's like firing up my glutes. Watch how my head raises. I've just gone up when I've clenched my buttocks, and I've gone down when I've relaxed them. Now, you guys might not be able to do that because your glutes may be weak. So you'll pinch and perch your bottom and you won't move very high. It's just because I've been doing Pilates for a long time and my butt is good to go. So, but just practice it. All of us need at the bottom of most osteopathic and chiropractic problems will be weak glutes. So if you can get into this habit, this is something you can do at your desk. Pinch and perch your bottom, grow tall, and then relax. So you could do that 5 or 6 times. Then we're going to add to it the belly. So you breathe in, like we just did with the rib cage. As you breathe out and you're thinking about closing the ribs down, I want you to imagine that you're doing up your jeans. You're pulling your lower belly back towards your spine. And as you breathe in again, you can't help but relax that muscle, the belly, unless you've been doing Pilates for years, and then you can hold it in even when you breathe in and out. So you probably can't. So let's go again. You're sitting upright. You've got your ears in line with your shoulders. You breathe in wide and full. As you breathe out, pinch and perch your buttocks, close the ribs down, draw the ribs back towards the spine at the end, and scoop the belly in and up. It's like doing up your zipper, the lower belly, 1, 2, and 3. Then relax the buttocks, relax everything. It's a lot to think of to bring the 3 things together. You're not expected to be able to do that today. I'm just introducing the concept. This is the powerhouse. That if this is strong, then we can manage way more exercises in both our yoga and our Pilates class. Okay, now let's go back to the band and we'll add all of those things in together. So the band is out. I want the shoulder blades down your back. I want your chin tuck. And when you chin tuck, don't think so much of the chin, but think of the imaginary ponytail lengthening up towards the ceiling. Okay, feet flat on the floor. Breathe in wide and full into the rib cage as you lift the band up. Pinch and perch your bottom. As you breathe out, lower the band, growing taller in the crown, and scoop your belly in and up. I know you're probably thinking, God, I've lost her. What's she doing? And again, relax the buttocks to start. Breathe in as you come up with the band, but glide the shoulder blades down your back. As you breathe out, grow taller through the crown, close the ribs down and squeeze the buttocks to grow tall until you reach the bottom again. Relax. Breathe in wide and full as you lift the band and slide the shoulders down your back. Keep pulling the band outwards, remember. As you breathe out, clench the buttocks first, grow tall as you pull the band out and down. And one more, breathe in. You've relaxed the buttocks on the way up. Rib cage wide and full. As you breathe out, pinch and perch the buttocks, grow tall through the crown, pull the band wide as you slide it back down. Good. Okay, so that's, if you can just practice some of those and remember in the rib cage, the belly, the glutes, and ultimately the ears in line with the shoulders growing tall, you won't go far wrong. I now want to talk about, again, I mentioned underneath the muscle group here, the serratus and the lats. I want you to, this is called dumb waiter. And you could, forget the band a second, get your elbows in quite close, in line with your shoulder, and your palms facing up as if you're holding a tray. And now make that tray wider with the hands. So the elbows are in tight, palms are up, and the hands are wider. Now imagine, if you've got a cushion near, that's great, or you don't have to get it now, you can try it again, you don't need it, but it can sometimes, if you don't grasp this concept, then try it with a cushion, but I should imagine that you all will. Imagine there's a little cushion underneath your armpit here, and I want you to just press in and then release. Press in with the elbows and release. What you're doing is working this muscle to make it stronger. If these muscles are strong, it's going to help keep the shoulder blades down your back so that you don't end up, you'll see people who are stressed out and, you know, you come home from work at the end of the day, the shoulders are up here, everything's all tight. If the lats and the serratus muscle are strong, it will keep them down. Or when you do this, it'll just be easier to remind your body. So what we're doing here is with a wide open chest, as you dig the elbows in towards the side and hold for a couple of seconds and release, not only are you working this, but with the hands being wider, you're keeping this muscle at the top of your shoulder soft, because this is where you hold the tension. So we're deliberately holding our hands out whilst we work this muscle underneath our armpit, but so that we can relax this so that it doesn't become dominant and take over. So a couple of these, you just, you know, you could move the pillow one side, move the pillow the other side. And that will help strengthen these and relax the shoulders. And lastly, to open up the pecs. Now we're going to need to stand for this. So you stand, take your chair away, hold the tea towel behind you with your palms facing the screen. How am I doing for time? Oh God, I've run over. Are we all right, Ray, to finish here? It's me saying that I would be quick because I was too nervous. Okay, really quickly, because I think this is the most important one. This is to stretch the pecs. Palms are facing, fingertips down. And really glide those shoulder blades down your back. So if you saw my fingertips, they're long. See? We're going to breathe in as you stretch, pull the band out again, and stretch it down as you lift it up and bring it back down to underneath your bottom. A couple more times, stretch down towards the floor, keep pulling the band outwards and lift it up as high as you can and bring it back down. A few more times, but as you're doing it, I want you to think of the front body. Remember, we just closed the ribs down and pulled the belly in and up. I want you to stand with your feet hip width apart. So you stretch down, you breathe in, your rib cage will flare a little, but try and pull it in. Scoop the belly in and up and bring the arms back down. Breathe out, scoop the belly in, ribs down, take the arms up, 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 without thrusting the hips forward or lifting the chest too high. Breathe in as you come back down towards your bottom. And again, breathe it. So I'm pulling outwards. Breathing in as I lift, 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 but I'm pulling my ribs in towards my spine and pulling my belly in and up. Breathing in as I come back down. Keep the shoulders down. Don't let them glide up towards your ears. One more time. Breathing in as you pull the belly in, ribs down, pull the band wide. And back in. Good. Okay, well, I think you could add that into your little desk routine 3 times a day. If you put that all together, you'll soon find it just takes 5 minutes, and it'll just, apart from giving you something to do and stand up and refresh everything, your posture being better will allow you to breathe better. When we're all hunched over, when you breathe in, the ribs can't expand and then you don't get as much oxygen. That feeds the brain. That means you'll be brighter, you'll be more creative in your writing. And if you'd like to learn more, it's been great. I believe we've set up something for next week, Wednesday or Thursday, a little taster hour that I'm happy to do an hour's long Pilates with the mat and explore a bit more. I believe you're all around the UK, but we do online classes. So come and have the taster. We've also got a beginner's course, which is 4 weeks online, starting next week on Monday, I think, Monday or Tuesday. So that would be a day ahead of this taster. So I believe in the chat box, there's a link for you to register, and that would be great to see some of you online. Thanks for the invite, Ray. See ya.